In this lesson, we're going to start to cover how to build the skeleton for your rig. What we're going to do is we're going to use joints to build out a skeleton. We're only going to build half of it at a time. So we'll build the spine, and we'll break it up into parts. We'll build the spine and the head, we'll build the arm, and we'll build the leg, and then after that we'll add some facial joints to it as well. You'll only build half so you can mirror it across. You don't have to focus on trying to make both sides even. That makes things easier, and after you orient your LRAs, you'll only have to do that once, and you won't have to do it for the other side as well. So again, we're going to focus on breaking this up. So it'll be kind of torso and head, the arm, actually the hand too, and then the leg. And actually, we'll start out with the leg. The leg's usually where I'll start, either the leg or the spine. I'm going to jump into my side view here, and I'm going to make sure I have X-ray joints turned on. And what this will do is, even if my joints are inside my mesh, it'll allow me to see them. And I'm just going to go ahead and click out a series of joints here. Actually, I've already got my joint tool here, but if you don't have it, you go up to skeleton. I'm in my animation set, skeleton joint tool, and I'm clicking, and if I don't let go, it'll just let go wherever I finally drop it. And it's really tiny, but it'll adjust and scale in a second here. So put one on my knee, I put one on my ankle, the ball of my foot, and the toes. And actually, let me back up, because this is something I see beginners do all the time, is they start to build their leg out, and they put one here in the ankle, and they put one here in the heel, and they put one here in the ball, and one in the toe. This is wrong. You only place joints where you're actually going to bend and pivot. I think a lot of people do this because they think of how the bone structure looks, or maybe that they want to pivot off the heel. But this is going to bend your foot from within the heel, and that's not what we want. That's a very broken foot. So there's no need for that. Let's go ahead and just delete this whole chain. So when you're placing joints, think about where they're bending from. You notice here in the knee I'm placing it a little bit towards the front. That's fine. It'll preserve the volume of the knee a little bit more when I'm bending it, because this is only a hinge joint, so it's only just bending in the back. Ankle I'm going to put kind of in the center because it bends all directions, and kind of the same with the ball here. Okay, and actually I'm going to build one more click off the toes. Let me change my background color so you guys can see that a little bit better. So I've gone, this is the toe, and then I build one extra joint out. The reason I do that is because, let me build two chains here and you can see what the difference is. The reason I do that is because how Maya auto orients its LRAs. So I'm going to hop back into a perspective view. And if you don't know what the LRA is, go check out the video on orienting LRAs, the local rotation axis, because that's very important when you're doing this. So I'm going to grab both feet and look at the LRAs. So you notice the one on the end here didn't get oriented the same way as these others. That X is always facing down the chain here, and this one just kind of is facing off. And for some reason this one worked out, but usually it'll be at a different orientation and everything else. So building that extra chain just gives me an automatic orientation to face there, and then I'll delete that. This point right here I'll delete. But it's just so I get that automatic orientation, so I don't have to go do it myself. It just saves me a step because it's easier to go delete a joint than it is to go in, select it, select orient joint, check out if it's okay. So now that I made that, I can get rid of it. So we built that in the side view, so it looks fine in the side view, but when we get to the front view, not exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to start to position this into place. And so when I position it, I'm only using my move tool, my translate tool. So I'm only translating it, X, Y, and Z here. I don't ever rotate it into place, and the reason for that is I don't want these rotations on. Now, I could let one caveat go. So there is one time you could rotate it, and that's right now as you're creating it. Before you've built any rig controls or IK handles or anything like that, you can rotate it to get it into place, but you then have to go and modify freeze transformations when you're done positioning it to get rid of all the rotations. In this case, I'd just turn off everything else. And that's okay, because now it's positioned, but I don't have rotations on it. Everything's lined up the same. The rotation gimbals look right that way. So just something to keep in mind. I'm going to go ahead and undo that, though, for the sake of this. And I do that fairly often, actually, but only when building. If you add IK handles already at this point, it's not going to let you freeze transformations. If you've skinned something to it, to these joints already, it's not going to let you freeze transformations. So you get one shot at the beginning, and then after that, it's definitely only translate things to get them into place. So I'm going to adjust this as I go. So you notice here, there's this crook for the underwear, and that's kind of where I want that leg to pivot. So I'm actually going to pull it down a little bit so it's right on that line. I think we're good from the side, as maybe because the hand's kind of in the way there. Maybe move it back just a little bit. And if the hand's blocking your view and you can't see through it, you can also change to X-ray view, and can start to see the legs some that way. For those of you who are wondering, I'm hitting Alt B to change my background color. So that looks like it's in a good spot. So I'll go down to my next joint here. And actually, I realize right now I deleted that joint prematurely, but I'll show you how to deal with that if you've done that as well. So, and you'll notice I'm just moving in all directions, so it's fine. Maya in 2012 and 2013, I believe auto orients the joints now as you're moving them. So before, if you're working in something earlier, you'd have to go after placing these up to skeleton and do orient and joint on all these to reorient the joints. But you'll notice as I'm placing them, watch the numbers up here. All three numbers will get changed, and when I let go, it'll just switch to 1. And that's because X is reorienting and facing down towards the child automatically as we're building out the skeleton. It saves us a step. It's actually quite a nice feature. So notice I'm jumping around in all views. Sometimes people get caught up in just doing this in the front and side views. Don't do that, because you'll miss little angles that are important, like maybe right here or something like that. Knee and the thigh are fine, but we really want to fly around and just kind of make sure that this is the right angle for all of this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the foot kind of in the center here. Alright, I think I'm happy with that. And okay, so just in case, I am going to orient my joints. Maybe this is just habit for me, but just to ensure that everything's lined up. So the default settings should be fine. And that will check back on orient children of selected joints for me. So that means I could just select this one, but it'll do the whole chain. If I only wanted to do that one, but not anything below the knee or so on, I could turn this off, and that would only do the one joint. But I want to do them all right now. Okay, so let's go down here and see how this LRA came out. It's not bad. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get this in a nice straight line. So what I'm going to do is, again, so if you haven't watched the video on the LRAs, watch that. If you haven't watched the video on difference between object, local, and world space, watch that. But I'm going to go into local space so that I'm oriented the same way as this ball joint. Duplicate the toe joint, and whoops, and pull it out. Here's some. Parent that new joint under the toe joint, and let's go to object mode so you can see what's going on. So this is the direction the LRA is facing currently on this toe, and I just want it nice and straight so it lines up with the rest of the foot. And I'm going to do a orient and joint on it again, and now it's lined up, so it's nice. It's lined up exactly the same way the ball is, so we get a nice straight line for when we start to want to lift up off the toe. And again, now I could delete this. So even if you do it prematurely, you could see just duplicate the end, move it one way or another, parent it back into that joint, place it however you want, and then orient the joints, and you can start to tweak things that way. So let's see. This is looking okay, and again, I'm just going to handle this kind of all one at a time, each limb. I'm going to go to X-ray here so we can see the LRAs. And okay, I think I'm happy with the hip, but the knee needs some work. Z out in front here, and just to be consistent, I'm just always going to have Z forward, Y off to the side. That'll be the same setup that I have throughout the body. So spine will have Z either facing forward, backward, and Y off to the left or right, depending on which direction it goes. Okay, so let's see. These I need to rotate 90 degrees if I'm going to do that. So I've double-click my rotate tool, gone to discrete rotate, turn that on, step size 30, and I'm just going to rotate these all around until I have Z facing up. And FYI, when you're orienting your LRAs, it doesn't really matter. X should face down and Z could face up and Y to the right, or vice versa, Y up and Z to the side. Doesn't really matter. It's just you should be consistent, and you should be consistent across all the rigs in your project. So as an animator is jumping around from character rig to character rig, they don't have to kind of figure out how the rotations work on it. So that it was Z before to bend everything, but now it's Y to bend everything. You don't want them to think about that. So just stay consistent as much as possible. So, whatever axis it takes to bend the knee here in the leg, it should be the same to bend the elbow on the arm. So I think I'm happy with that. And again, let's just look at my LRAs here. And those look like there's a pretty standard axis for everything to bend in one direction. Side to side, back and forth, and twisting. Y in our case is back and forth, Z is side to side, and X is the twisting point. But again, it could be any one of those axes. If you decide, for your engine, for your project, it needs to be Y facing down to the child, Z up, whatever. Doesn't matter as long as you're just consistent within a single rig and then consistent across any of your characters, anything like that. So it's again, you don't have to think about the animation, the rig just works. So I'm happy with the leg. And let me point this out to you. You'll notice that this is going outside the leg. That is fine. This is just kind of a visual representation of how things are parented to one another. So this is the child of this, and it's just pointing to its child. The only functionality happens in that little point right there. That little circle is where everything's bending, and that's all we really care about. If it doesn't fit inside the leg the whole time, that's fine. I've seen some extreme examples of, the knee doesn't even sit inside the actual model because of the weird pose the leg is in, but it's a hinge joint, so it doesn't matter. So as long as it's bending the right direction, it doesn't have to go side to side and twist or anything like that. It just has to go one direction. So as long as that axis lines up with the direction your leg bends, then that's fine. Heel, that's important to actually be inside. The hip, that's important to actually be inside. But there are times where you can fudge it. Same with elbows. So just FYI. Well, I should be clear on this. Side to side, it's fine. When you get too far out or too far in of the joint not being inside the knee, now you're going to get some weird bending knees. But off to the side, since it's only bending this direction, you can get away with that. So I'm happy with the leg here. Let's go ahead and we'll build the arm next. I guess usually the best view to do this in is the top view or the side view, and just the position of the arms. Probably the side view is better for this guy. If you're in a T pose where the arms are going straight out like this, top view is probably better, but it doesn't matter. You can always place them and just move them afterwards. So let's go ahead and go into our side view, and I'm going to put one actually over here for the clavicle, and that one will be the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. We'll do one more just to extend that out, but that'll be placeholder. Okay, so the arm's going to get a little bit fancier, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But let's go ahead and first place these joints out. So here's another beginner mistake that I see. Let me go ahead and just do this real quick. So that's mostly inside there. So this is a mistake I see, is people will put their joints in the center of their shoulder. Learn your anatomy. It's really important when placing your joints. We don't bend from the center of your shoulder. You've got a body, I'm hoping, so move your arms and test it out and see where your body moves from. You're not bending from in here, you're bending from over here and closer towards the top than the center. And that's really where you want to put your shoulder joint, is somewhere in here. And that'll get you nice deformations when you lift up your arm, so you're not getting this shoulder that collapses into your chest and it looks like you busted your arm, or vice versa, of having too far out the shoulder that sticks up way too much. If you pivot in here, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like you're bending in the right spot. So I think a lot of people get confused because the bone, let's jump in the front view. The bone sort of looks like, let's do it on the other arm. And they see pictures of it. The bone's sort of shaped like that. It's this ball and socket joint. And again, it's like they think they need this point here to mimic the bone. You don't. You just need where it pivots from. Doesn't matter how the bone's built. It just matters where it bends from. So, things to focus on. So let's go ahead and finish positioning this out. And again, I'm flying all around as I'm doing this. So, little trick on the transform tool. Let's cover this real quick. So, just so you know, if I click on one of these axes, that's the only thing active. So as I'm clicking on this, it's only moving in Z. If I middle mouse click, I don't even have to have my mouse over it. I could just middle mouse drag, and now that it's highlighted, that's the only one moving. Likewise, there's this little blue box here in the center. If I click on that, it's moving with the camera plane. So as if I was putting my finger on this sheet of glass that's my screen, and sliding the joint around on that screen. However the camera's oriented is how it's going to move. You could also lock that out. So if I control click on any one of those axes, I can't move it in Y now because I control clicked on it. You can see how that little box is flat now. So it's only moving on Z and X. I could do the same thing for any one of those axes. So now I'm not moving on X, just Z and Y. And then when I'm done doing that, I can control click back on that little yellow box and move it around to camera plane. Good chance you've done that by accident if you've been working in Maya for a while and just had no idea what the heck was going on if you're not familiar with it. It's actually how I learned about it. Is I spent 2 years trying to figure out why my transform tool would periodically break and then realize that was a thing. So anyway, so again, with these hinge joints, I tend to place it closer to the point it's going to bend at. So you notice again on the knee, it's closer to the front, and since the elbow, the similar point is facing backwards, moving it kind of more to the back. But as far as the front view, kind of even. By the way, clavicle kind of moves from 2 points. It's 2 joints kind of together. I tend to just build mine from the front, and then if you really need something to deal with how the scapula deforms or anything like that, you could build a second joint. But most of the time, you don't need it, and building it from the front is just fine. And let's go ahead and place the wrist in the center here, and again just flying around, making sure this kind of looks like it's actually in the center from all angles, and just adjusting as we go around. So I think that's good, and again this is going to be placeholder here, and I'll explain in a second. So let's go ahead, and again I'm going to probably don't need to do this, but of course I haven't. And we're going to look at the LRAs of the arm now. I'm going to go back into component mode. And so let me grab the leg and the arm at the same time so we can kind of compare notes here of what's facing which direction. So this gets a little bit tricky of, well, what's the right way to make this face? Where bending this is going to be Z positive, I believe. Whoops. Bending this the direction it goes should be Z negative, actually. Usually not such a big deal because you're not needing the arms to bend the same way as the legs. So I'll tend to have them all facing forward between the legs and the arm. I might have it different on the spine, but as long as it's the same from left to right, that's kind of the bigger deal than necessarily leg to arm, because that could kind of differ on how you interpret which way should be positive, which way should be negative, depending how you animate. But for the most part, I'm just going to make sure that kind of the Y's all face the same direction. That when I grab this that it looks like it's lined up with about how the elbow is lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off X-ray here, so I can just, I'm kind of looking at the gimbal and seeing how the Y-axis is lining up with the arm. You know, if it looks like it's kind of in the center of the crook of the arm and the elbow, then great. If not, then I need to tweak it some. I think that's probably okay. It's close enough. So we'll let that one go. If I wanted to, I could tweak it some, but I just, whoops, I'm going to turn off discrete rotate. Yeah, I could tweak it a little bit, but doesn't really need it. And then sort of the same with the wrist, making sure that's nice and lined up. And actually, I'm not worried about the wrist. I'm mostly worried about the elbow, and here's why. So we're gonna fake how the radius and ulna work in the forearm, and what we're gonna do is twist this thing gradually as we go down, rather than having two bones crisscross over each other like our bodies actually do. But to get that twisting action, we need this nice aligned axis going down the arm, which means this x-axis needs to be lined up the whole way through any joints in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just delete that, and I'm going to duplicate my elbow. I'm in object mode, so I'm aligned. My transform gizmos align the same way this joint currently is. And I'm going to put one here in the center of the arm, and that's going to help for deformation. It's going to give us better twisting motion. If I don't put one here, we can still twist our arm, but the polygons will collapse a whole lot more than if we leave one here. And actually, let's go to wireframe real quick. And I'm going to move this down to where there's an edge, and that way I can skin weight this edge to it, rather than having some weird fall off from trying to be in the center of two. And this will make more sense as we start skin weighting why we're doing this, but just follow my lead on that for the time being. Okay, so that's for twisting, and then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. I'm hitting Control D, and this one's our wrist, and I'm going to parent each one under the other. Okay, so that gives us our form, and so if we look at this, I'm going to go ahead and turn back on X-ray mode so you can see the LRAs. These are all lined up the exact same way now because I duplicated this joint and started. So when I start to twist, we'll get a nice twisting action down the arm. The arm won't start to accidentally bend because they're all slightly facing different ways, and it'll look like a badly broken arm. It'll look nice and rigid as we're spinning it. So and we'll spin, like if we spin this one, we'll spin it however much, and we'll spin this one 50% of however much this one spins, and that will start to give us the nice fall off. So that's the forearm, and often I'll do the same thing with the shoulder. So I'm just going to pull this down here. I'm going to pick walk down, which is using the arrow keys on my keyboard to go up and down a hierarchy. So if we're looking in the outliner, here's my arm. As I hit the up arrow key, you can see it goes up. If I hit down, it's going down the hierarchy. You side to side, so you see there's two joints parented under joint 6 there. If I go down, if I want joint 11, I can hit left or right, and that switches me back and forth between those two. And now that I'm on joint 11, I could pick walk down. So anyway, I'm pick walking down, deleting all the extra joints that I didn't need there, parenting that duplicate joint under the shoulder. And again, that gives us two joints that are lined up the same way. So this is lined up exactly the same way this one is, and then once we hit the elbow, these are all lined up together. And that's again to get X all facing the same direction, so they're nice and lined up. And so as far as the arm goes, I think I'm happy with that. And it keeps going this way. We'll do the same thing for the fingers, we'll do the same thing for the spine, and we'll keep going through this. So let's do the spine right now. And so here we get into a choice that we can make. And this is if you're going to do an FK spine where it's all FK controls. So the joints themselves are currently FK. So that's just grabbing them and rotating them to get them to do whatever by hand. We could also build an IK spine, and not having done it yet, I'll start to tell you a little bit the difference. If you're going to animate an FK, what I recommend is, let's go ahead and go to X-ray mode so we can kind of see where the back is. If you're going to go in animate an FK, build your spine straight up. So I'm just going to build one joint there. It's not going to orient to anything. And I'm just going to keep duplicating it and putting those joints. Actually, let me make these a little bit bigger so you can see them. I'm just going to keep duplicating these and putting them where I want twisting to happen. Also, I'm going to put more joints below the rib cage than above. I only need a couple above the rib cage because you can't really bend anywhere through here. But down here, you're pretty flexible as far as bending over. You notice if you really lean over, it's mostly in here. It's a little bit in your back, but not so much happening up here. So again, just duplicating and getting up to the neck. I tend to do a couple in the neck, and then we'll have one at the base of the head, and we'll just parent these all under one another. I don't have to go just the LRAs, but I can do this by hand really easy. But this way we get a nice straight vertical line up. And as far as placing it, I would probably move it back a little bit to the point where the neck is nice and centered, and then I could go and move this up a little bit. I'm not moving it side to side, just up and down, back and forth at the base. But that would be a good FK spine, and let me build a spine that I would make for an IK back first before I kind of explain what the difference is, because it'll be a little bit hard to see without having skin weighting on here. So if I was doing a IK spine with a spline control, I would build a little bit more of an S in here to make it a little bit more natural, like our actual spine is shaped. This will work just fine for an IK spine, but let's look at why you wouldn't want to use this for an FK spine. So there's not going to be a whole lot to actually see. Let me put in some locators real quick, and this will kind of demo this. Shrink these about 50%. So this isn't something you need to do to build your spine. This is just purely for visual interpretation of what's going on. Because you won't really be able to tell in the FK spine as much as you will in the IK spine what's going on. So I'm just going to parent these locators that I made under the spine so you can kind of see what's happening when I start twisting. Okay, so if this is IK, we'd have controls to this, but let's just say we're grabbing the joints to do it in this case. And, oh, actually, let's not grab them all. When I start to twist, I could twist on a single axis in Y, and it's not a problem. These stay relatively straight. Your back is still upright. The same way you could twist, and you don't bend over or anything when you start twisting side to side and rock your arms back and forth or anything like that. This spine can do that easily with FK. IK you wouldn't be able to do, or at least a curved spine. Let's watch what happens when you start to twist. So depending how much, actually let's start up higher because you'll see it more there. It depends how much your joints are twisted. But they're twisting at this angle, so as you start to twist, it's almost like your character starts to lean back now, because if this is neck and head, it's almost like they're looking back behind them like what's going on, as opposed to staying upright. They're starting to do a little bit of a matrix dive backwards sort of thing as you twist. Yeah, so if we grab multiples here, it doesn't keep your back upright quite as much, and hopefully you can start to see that. If you don't quite understand that, just trust me on this. If you're going to animate an FK, build your straight spine, but if you're going to build your IK spine later, S-curve's okay. I'm actually going to go ahead and run with this IK S-curve spine. Whoops. Can't zero it out. That puts it back at the origin. I'm just going to translate it back over here. and say that's good. So the other thing to watch out for is your LRAs when you do this, and we talked about this a little bit in the LRA video, but you'll notice as the arc of the spine switches directions, so do the LRAs. So we need to go back and orient these all the same direction. Actually, let's go ahead and look at the rest of our joints and be consistent with those. So Y is off to the side on all these, so I want Y off to the side on this as well. Turn my discrete rotate back on. And this is where you kind of got to start to decide, Z forward, Z back. And I'll tend to have Z back on this case because it'll keep Y going the same direction for the most part, between the arm and the back. But when I look at the leg, the chain is going this way and this way on the spine. It's going the opposite direction, so you have one chain going down, one chain going up. So if you were to rotate the leg around 90 degrees, this is the direction your LRAs would be. So I'm going to go ahead and make that consistent for all the joints in the back. All right. So once you start to build these individual pieces out, you can start to parent them together. The reason I don't parent them together to start with is because you may still be orienting LRAs and you don't want to accidentally say, I want to orient the leg, but you then do the whole spine, which you already did, and you have to go and tweak it again. But I think we're at the point here with these that we can start to do that. So hand's pretty straightforward. I'll do at least one finger here. I'm not going to go run through the whole thing because it's a lot of the same setup, but pretty much the same thing we did in the arm. So we bend there, we bend there, we bend there, and we'll do an extra tip there. So looking at my own hand here, double checking that, making sure that seems right. That seems pretty right. And as much as possible, I want these straight. So I might even go delete these, but and duplicate them out the way I did before. But this should be fine. So you have to go do this for each finger. I mean, I could duplicate this chain and place this out for each hand. Like I'd probably start with this middle finger first, or index, or whatever. Get my placement right. Also, if you're having trouble rotating around, you could always hit select the joint you're trying to place, hit F, and the camera will focus in on it. Its pivot points on there, so it makes it a little bit easy to fly around to place everything. Also, another newbie mistake, your finger does not bend past here, it bends up here on the palm of your hand. So again, look at your own body as you're doing this, because there's lots of little tips you'll catch that there's how you think your body works and then how it actually does. And I'm going to turn back on wireframe again so I can kind of see where I put that geometry for bending. Also, another little trick, if I hold down the D key, that's the same as hitting insert in your keyboard. It switches you to moving pivot points, and it's a nice way to be able to move a joint without moving the rest of the joints below. So I'm moving, if I move it regularly, it moves the whole chain, but if I hold down D, then I can move just that top chain without having to reposition everything else. If I already got everything else in where I wanted it, but that top joint wasn't quite there, that's the way I could do it. Or even in the middle here, I can start to move this around without moving the other joints. So I'm gonna be a little bit quick here, but it's kind of like woodworking: measure twice, cut once. Spend some time placing your joints. You don't want to find out like halfway through skin weighting that you made a bad placement in your joints. So spend the time now to do it. And as much as possible, try to line this up straight. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off wireframe unshaded so I could just see this a little bit better. But I don't want it wobbling too much if possible. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this out real quick, just to kind of show you how to test this. So I'm not going to actually place these into the hand in this case, but show you what you're looking for when you test. So let's say that was our hand. The thing that we want to make sure it could do is, if I grab all these joints, is that it can make a fist. without crossing its fingers over. If I could bend in one axis and make a fist, let's turn off discrete rotate again. That's pretty good. I could see that in this case I'd want to reorient them a little bit so they bend more towards the center of the hand and not outside so much. But that's totally fixable. So that's your key when placing on your fingers, is that you can rotate them in one axis again after they're placed and get it to make a fist nice and clean to start with. Because if they start crossing over each other like this, you can animate with that, but then you have to keep correcting it all the time, and if you get it one axis, it's much easier. So once I built all these, I'd build the thumb, and you just parent them to the hand after that. So this is one of those cases where the hand doesn't aim to any one of these because you want it centered up with the forearm. That's fine. What I'm talking about is your LRA here. So X just faces down the same direction as all the forearm and elbow joints do. Doesn't need to aim it in the children joints in this case, because it has 5 different directions it could go in this case. We don't need it to pick one. We just want it nice and centered. So the last part is the face. And the face is a little bit trickier. So this is going to kind of a creepy view. So the easy ones to do are jaw and eyes. So let me jump to my side view here. Jaw is pretty straightforward. So if you're not sure where to place your jaw, feel your face, move your jaw up and down, and feel where that starts to pivot from. It's kind of back here behind your ear. And then just kind of build a nice straight line. I try to line it up with the bottom of the jaw. Really, you just go straight forward. Again, it's not about this part here. It's just about this part right here and how it lines up to rotate. And for me, it's nice and logical when I can kind of line up the y-axis here with the bottom of the jaw. That gives me an idea of where it should be. But for some people, straight ahead is fine, and they just they know it's closed when it's straight forward and open when it's at any other angle. There's options there. It's just, again, trying to think what's going to be the most logical thing for whoever's animating. If it's you, you get to pick. If it's another person, ask them what they like, and just it's easy to build either way. And you just get their opinion and make something custom for them. So that'll be our jaw joint, and again, we won't need this end point. That was more just to orient that point, but I like to keep all these till I finish building the face out. So, we'll do sort of the basics first, and then we'll talk about kind of how to do a game rig. Let me jump back to my side view here. Drop cameras, so that's out of the way. So we want something that's kind of in the center of the eye here, as much as possible. And I'm building it to the tip of the eye so that it's aiming that same direction. So as we rotate, it's there's always an axis pointing to where we want the eye to look when we place it. And again, this should be kind of in the center of the eye. There's some probably fancier tricks to place this, but for now we're just kind of going with the basics, and you really can get away with a lot with just eyeballing things. No pun intended there. So I think I'm happy with that as far as that placement. Looks like it's center of the eye. I think it'll get the eye looking around okay. So those are the easy ones. And actually, you know what? We could duplicate this because we'll want something that's in the center of the eye. So let me undo that. So joint 37, I'm duplicating it on joint 39. And if I pick walk down, so I've got 2 joints right on top of each other, I'm going to just move this up. And that joint will be for the upper eyelid. Let me go ahead and turn off X-ray so you can see. So that's for up here, so we can blink, and then I'll do the same thing. So duplicated that chain again, and pick walking down, and I've moved it to the bottom eyelid. So now we have something that's going to pivot around the surface of the eye and be able to blink and open and close the eye. And again, we don't need these end joints, we're just worried about these. This is a little bit confusing because it's all right on top of each other, but you'll build controls that'll separate it out, so doesn't matter that it's on top of each other. You just need the pivot points in the same place. But then you can build visual controls that are farther out, and we'll get to that eventually. I'll leave those there for now. So now we start to get into the realm of, well, if we're doing a film rig, we can do blend shapes for all this to make the face move around. But if we're doing a game rig, while some game engines use blend shapes, they tend to be processor intensive. So you want to use very few as possible. And so the more facial animation you can do with joints, the better. And so I'll start to show some basic ways to start to place joints. So we'll focus on the mouth here. And you can do this for any point, so cheeks puffing out, ears wiggling, eyebrows going up and down. We'll focus on the mouth in this case, and in future lessons you can kind of see how we've built out the rig for the rest of the face. But it's the exact same concept. You're looking for how you want things to pivot. So most people, their first inclination is to, let's turn on wireframe so I can see my geometry, is just put points on the face and use those to animate around with. And I'm going to do this here for starters. And there are times where this is useful, but for the most simple game rigs, this isn't one of those cases. So in theory is you could move these around to animate your lips lifting up, to get different shapes. You'd move this around, the lip would follow. This would move the corner of the mouth. But there's a good reason not to put them here, is because as your face is talking, it's deforming, but it tends to be deforming over the shape of your skeleton. So you want to be able to move these, but have them move with the surface of the skeleton as they're moving. And translation's not the best way to do that, because you'll lose the volume as you're moving this around, or get too much volume. It's hard to keep it placed. Rotation's better for that, but to do that, if you rotate it here, all you're doing is spinning the lip around. You're not really getting something that would deform over the skeleton. So to do that, we're actually going to place the joints way here, over here in the back, to start to get that type of rotation that we need. But the question is, where do we go and place that joint then to get that kind of arc? One way you could do this is make yourself kind of a measuring tool. So I'll go down here and I'm going to look at my origin here, and I'm going to create a NURBS circle. Alright, so we got a NURBS circle there. And I'm going to create a locator here. And I'm going to parent the locator under the NURBS circle. And I'm going to move this NURBS circle up to the face, and what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees so it's up vertically. We'll start with the lip, and just try to find a good place to place this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this circle down, and let's go ahead and look at this in X-ray mode. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off wireframe so it's a little bit easier to see. And I'm scaling it till I get a surface, that's about the size of the lip. And I can play, different placements and see, is it better in here somewhere? I think I start to like that a little bit better as far as how the lip is going to lift up when it rotates. And to me, that looks like it's probably pretty good. I mean, maybe I want it a little bit bigger. So this kind of curves down a little bit here too, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. So let's say I like that. So what I'll do, I'm going to hide my polygons here. I'm going to use this locator for snapping too. I'm going to snap this from my perspective view. And I'm just going to double check I haven't moved it around side to side. I haven't, because it's... Oh, wait, have I? Nope. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap the joint. So I'm holding down V to turn on temporary point snap. and I'm clicking and I'm dragging. So you notice I don't have to click right on there. I don't want to accidentally click on the end of my head and start building off of that. Let me undo that joint. I think that's gone. Okay, so I'm hitting Y to get back up my skeleton tool, and so I'm just holding down V and I'm clicking down but not letting go down over here and then dragging to where I want it to snap, and doing the same thing here on the end. So that's one lip, and I'll just use the same spot. Whoops, actually. Hit Y to start my tool over again. And so what we've got is this point here will be skinned to the tooth. We're actually going to use this joint I built originally. But if I need to move the lips, I could rotate this and get a good arc for the lips that way. And actually, I'm going to do this one more time because you guys get to see it again, and I'm not super happy with that placement. So I'm going to do it one more time, kind of looking at the bottom lip too, and move it up just a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to call that good. Again, I'm going to hide my polygons, use my skeleton tool, point snap to the locator, point snap to the end, and same thing for the lower lip. And so I'll do this for the rest of them too. So that one's easy because it's flat, but the next one's going to be at an angle. So grab my circle here again, my measuring tool. I'm going to rotate it a little bit and figure out. Let me turn back on my model so I can kind of see it. And I'm kind of just looking top down again, kind of looking down the barrel of this and seeing, how do I this straight line here that I'm seeing for the lip, kind of bisect it with this circle. And once I've got it kind of, something nice and perpendicular, then I know I've got my angle. And again, there's no science to this. I'm just kind of guessing as I go and trying different things. It's guess and check here. I'm going to move it back so the circle's a little bit closer to the face, and I can see it cutting through the nose here more than the chin, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And I'm going to say, well, I'm going to shrink it down just a little bit too. So I got to bring it in some. Let's say I'm happy with that. Close enough. It's not right on the joints. If I want to get precise, I could tweak it a little bit. Close enough. So I'm going to hide my polygons. And you'll notice I'm going to be building on the right side now for the left side joints. So this could be a little bit confusing at first, but it's all about getting the pivot point that you need to get nice rotations. And I'll show you guys in a minute here what we're going for, and show you a finished rig that has some controls on it that does this already. And again, so we have one here now that would lift this lip up, and one down below that lifts the lower lip up and down. And we'll do the corner of the lip here too. So grab my circle, and again I'm just going to rotate it till it kind of starts to bisect that edge. I'm kind of looking at the overall edge of the face, and that looks... I'm going to move this out some, or... I think I'm going to move it out just a little bit more just because it's the corner of the face. Here's the other thing I can do. So as I'm positioning the circle, I could sweep it back and forth. So kind of see how when I rotate an X here, this corner of the mouth needs to go wide. So I could see, as it gets farther, it's sticking out more and more. I want it to be flush with the surface when I do this. So I'm going to move it out to the side even more here and make it a little bit bigger. Again, this is just a nice back and forth process. There's no real math or science to this. It's just kind of eyeballing it. There probably is some math and science to this. I don't know it, so I gotta eyeball it like this. But you don't always have to know your math and science. So that's too far out because I can see it sticking out farther over here than it is over here. So back a little bit. So that's not too bad. I mean, it cuts in the cheek a little bit, but maybe just a little bit more here. doesn't particularly matter how big the circle is. It just kind of tells you how far away to put it. So that's not too bad as I'm moving this forward, backward. Let's see. No, I still want it back just a little bit more because it's coming out into the face a little bit much. Alright, let's try this. That's not bad. You get a little bit more volume in here, so you're seeing it go away, but then it comes back over here. I think if I bring it forward just a little bit more, I'll be happier with that. Yeah, it seems a little bit more consistent. I'm just going to bring it back a little bit now. And again, I'm going to try to get this curve to kind of bisect this joint when I've got it placed. Alright, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hide my polygons again. Snap to this locator. Snap to that joint. And that's the joints I need for my mouth, and I'll just mirror over for the other side. And then we'll double check and make sure these are all oriented a direction that works for me. And so again, we're going to think about logic, so let's just start in the center here. This LRA is facing Y up, Z over the side, so we want to rotate it so Z is up, just like all our other joints. So we're keeping consistency here. But on the bottom lip, we're going to have Z be down and Y, or Z down and Y off to the side here. That's what I want. Let's double check those, make sure they're right. Oh, nope, I grabbed the wrong one there. So when you have two LRAs that are selected on at a time, and I should have deselected and then selected this lower one. There we go. Okay, so this bottom one's facing down, and this top one is facing up. Okay, so Z's up here, bottom lip's down. And the reason I reverse them is this, so I can grab both at the same time, rotate one direction in Z, turn off my discrete rotate here, and I get an open close as opposed to them both going up and both going down at the same time. Which is probably more what you want for opening and closing the mouth, is opposite directions rather than the same. So if I want, I could start to actually get fancy here. Let me see if I could figure out how to get both. I think I need to flip this around even more. So I think I need to flip this, like when we saw from our left to right side, I need to flip this around. So X is facing the opposite way now. And I might need to flip it again. We'll double check here. Yep, now I've done it one other. So you see, I don't always know what I'm doing, and often the case. I'll be the first to admit that. But the trick is, test stuff, figure out, okay, is it working, is it not, and then when it isn't, figure out what you did wrong and try something else. And is that the logic we want? Okay, so that gets me reverse. So mirroring, but I want to make sure when I move side to side, now they're moving the same direction. So before, when I was doing this, one would move left, one would move right, but now I've got it so I could open and close with one axis, but I could also move left and right going the same direction, which is probably a bit more logical for how we're rotating. I would go through and do this for the rest of the joints. I'm going to skip that step just in the sake of saving you guys from watching me do boring stuff. That's what rewind's for. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these end joints. I don't need them. Don't need the chin one. And these are the original ones I put on the ends of the lip just to be a marker. I don't need those anymore. And this guy was purely a measuring tool. He's not needed either. I would use him for the rest, but I'm not going to bother with it. So these would all get parented under the head here. And that would be the start of our head. And so this is the eye on the side, this is the mouse stuff. When you mirror, it'll be even. But this is the left side, this is the right side. So let me go through one last little step of naming convention for things. Usually I would be naming these as I'm going, but it's the most boring thing in the world to watch somebody else do. So I'm just going to work with the leg here, and when you get off to later versions and you see the demo files, you can see what the naming convention is, but let me explain the logic here. This is my naming convention, one I personally use on my own projects, but it could change depending on the projects you're on, or the needs of the engine, or somebody else has already set up the pipeline. But it's the idea of the logic. So I'm going to name mine. So on this thigh, so left underscore thigh, and let's say joint. So here's the logic behind this. So LF underscore for left. If it was right side, I'd name it RT underscore. The underscores help to separate different words out. So if I want to do search and replace later on, it'll help me by having those underscores separating different words, so I don't have some word that has LF in it and it replaces the LF in that word. It's looking for the underscore at the end. Sometimes people use one letter. I like to use two just because of that search and replace reason. There's much, whatever this word is here, if it just ended in L, far more likely more words that end in L with this underscore in it than LF with an underscore under it. So just using two letters kind of prevents more words from getting renamed than need to be renamed, because it occasionally happens where you rename something that you didn't mean to rename with an auto rename. And we'll show that in a second. But go through and name everything, because let's look in our outliner. This is what we've built already, and do you know what's what? Because I definitely don't, and naming is what's going to save you for this. This is only half the skeleton still. So name everything, because you'll come in later, there'll be hundreds of parts in here, and you'll have no idea if you're just jumping ahead before you name all this stuff. Save yourself the headache and go through and name this stuff. So name this LF underscore knee joint. And again, so what I'm doing is the side it's on, I'll tend to do CL for the center line of the spine instead of right or left. Some name that explains what the part is. So we're doing like the knee, thigh, ankle, ball, toe. And I can look at it and just, okay, I can read that name, know what part that is. And then J and T in this case, it stands for joint, so I know it's a joint. Sometimes I'll use DEF for deformation if this is a skeleton that's just being used for skinning. It doesn't get any rig parts attached to it. It's, this thing's going in the game, it doesn't get anything, and that's how I differentiate that from regular joint. Sometimes I'll use rig at the end, RIG, to define a part that this is a rig. It's not part of the skeleton, nothing's being skinned to it. It is only used for driving. It's a rig that drives a skeleton. There's a skeleton that drives another skeleton. And we'll get into those more as we actually go through and build this guy out. But that's kind of the logic in there. Sometimes there's more names to it because maybe there's several knee parts and you gotta be more specific of knee control, well, not control, but knee orient group or something like that, and you'll have to start to explain what those are in more detail. But for the most part, I try to keep something simple like this where it's one word wherever possible. Again, in case we have to do search and replace to rename stuff because something in our pipeline changed, or you just realize you named something wrong, or mirroring from left side to right side, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go through and finish naming my leg, but again, there's no particular rule. This is just kind of the guideline for how to do this. Just be, again, consistent in however you're building it. That's the main thing. So you don't necessarily have to use my naming convention. If you have another that you like, feel free to use that. But it's just mostly about organization and be able to change things later whenever possible. So left toe joint. And then this is really one of the most tedious parts of rigging. And once you learn kind of all the processes, this is the part that takes forever, not building anything. So I've got my right side, so I'm going to go ahead and mirror my joints. So mirror joint, I'm going to go check the options the first time I do this. So I'm mirroring across the YZ plane. So you can see our little gimbal down here, Y is up, Z is forward. So it's going to mirror across this line here. And take whatever's here, put it on this side. We're mirroring behaviors so that when I bend the knees, if I grab both knees at the same time and rotate them, they both bend backwards instead of one bending backwards and one bending forwards. When I duplicate it, it has auto rename, so I can tell it to search for LF underscore and replace that with RT underscore so it's named appropriately on the right side. So, and let's double check it, make sure it worked right. Yep, my knees are both bending the same way when I grab them. And you just do this for the rest of the skeleton. So let me do the spine here. You know, I'll do part of the spine here because God knows nobody wants to watch this. CL, hips, joint, CL for center line, or not hips, spine, let's say A. And here's a case where I might separate them out by another underscore. No particular reason for having an underscore in between there, just easier to read if I have A, B, C, D, E going up the spine here. Just easier for me to read. Some people ask why I would use CL for center line because it's not the most apparent thing. CT, you know, is what a lot of people like to abbreviate center for. The only reason I don't use that is because when we name controls, I'll name them CTRL, like your control button, and now we have a CT that could be auto search and replace that may conflict with that. So that's the only reason. It's nothing particular, and if you really want to use CT, you can. So that's the majority of making a skeleton. So you'll name all this stuff, you'll mirror it over. I'm not going to name this for the sake of this demo, but you should. Before you do that mirror, go name everything, make sure it's all set up correctly. It'll save you time so you don't have to go and name both sides later. And that's how you start to make your skeleton. So I didn't do everything in this case. You know, it gives you guys an overview. Focus on the leg, focus on the arm, focus on the spine, focus on the face, focus on the hands, kind of tackle them one at a time. But it's about, again, creating consistent logic through here, making sure things are oriented the proper direction, then going through and naming them all so you could actually tell what it is. When you go back in your outliner and you have to find that one part and you're like, where is it? Oh, here's all my leg stuff. Okay, great. Still have no idea what any of this is because I haven't named it yet. Looks like my spine starts here. And that's how to build a skeleton. We'll go more into this as we actually start to build the different rigs to drive the skeleton. And there'll be files you could start with to you could jump to or look at and copy as a model for how to name your own skeleton on your own files. So let's jump to a finished version of this rig so you guys can kind of see how this works once those rotation points are in place and it has controls to actually drive it. Okay, so here's our rig, and let me see, there's the lift control. And you can start to see, it's just a little bit of motion. This isn't for opening and closing the mouth. The jaw control does that. But on top of that, you can start to position the lips and start to get, and you can see my pivot points are all the way back over there. So that's the idea kind of behind this. We could rotate this in place, and yeah, we could translate it, but it doesn't quite, oh, 1Z, quite work as well. Oh, and this one is locked out. No, I can't translate on Y and Z. Well, finished rig. But you can see it actually makes for moving the mouth around much better rotating than you would translating, because now I don't have to try to keep fitting it around the teeth. It's actually rotating around the teeth. So that's the main benefit of doing it this way. It's a little bit weird looking as far as the skeleton goes, but much easier to work with while animating and opening and closing the mouth. So that's what you're doing when placing the joints back there, but that's the quick overview of kind of name everything, build 1.5, mirror it to the other side, and think about where the pivot point is more than where the thing is moving. So the pivot point doesn't even have to be inside the model. It could be out in the backside, even sticking outside the head if that's where the pivot point is. That gives you a nice kind of motion for, say, something like this. So those are the things to think about, and we'll continue more in our following lessons.